It was all pretty good for him growing up in Shanghai. But when China changed, Harry Wu's life changed. He was a student playing baseball, and then he became an inmate in China's labor camp system. After 19 years of imprisonment, he would move to the U.S., then return to China with the American media at his side.
If they catch you doing this, what happens to you?
Go back to the camp again.
Why are you doing it then?
Because I think the world have to realize there's a camp system in China.
While being forced to do labor to reform, many thought Harry Wu was digging a tomb. But in reality, he was only digging a tunnel. In 1937, the year Japan invaded China, Harry Wu was born Wu Hangda in Shanghai, a major city where people went for fun, famous cooks, gambling, jewelers, opium, and women. His childhood was generally a good one.
You know, at that time we have piano, we have sofa, we have 2 telephones in the home, we have refrigerator, carpet. You know, today these things are very common, but in 1940, it's very expensive. I heard my father say, I ordered from American to buy a car, and I quite remember Buick. So I quite remember Buick, okay? In my home, we have the magazine Life, Time, Fortune, okay? So this is a very special life in China.
Harry's father expected him to stand on his own feet. He had a stepmother, brothers, and sisters. His father was not religious, but while Harry was attending school, an Italian missionary converted the young man to Catholicism. Harry was able to read Western books. A favorite was Les Miserables, the story of an ex-convict who was trying to rebuild his life after prison. There was one other thing that captured Harry's attention, a sport that had been brought over to China by American servicemen. Baseball. He played it and was good. He even played at his eventual college. China had experienced changes, however. After a bloody civil war, a communist movement had taken control, and one of its prominent leaders, Mao Zedong, had declared the mainland of the nation to be the People's Republic of China.
In May 1949, so-called liberation, the People's Liberation Army liberated the city and the Communist Party coming. And most of people was prayed on the street that feel, oh, we have a new life and we're starting marching for communist society.
The Italian priests had to leave the nation and return home. Families fled for Hong Kong, Europe, or the Americas. Harry's father refused to leave China. He tried to be a loyal communist, but it wasn't chemically possible for him. Harry stayed in China as well.
So my father would sometimes disappear from the home. I don't know what's going on. And he was locked up in the office. But 1 month later, evening they come back, and I opened the door for him. I said, what's going on? He said, it's okay. We walked to my parents' bedroom. He didn't tell us what's going on. I don't know about it. But he lost the job. That doesn't mean he lost the job. It means the bank is turned over to the communists.
Harry went to college at Beijing Geology Institute. He had a girlfriend, Man Hua.
At that time, I have a girlfriend. I was very good in study, and I play baseball. I play I play third base or shortstop. Okay. I'm the captain of the team.
In the 1950s, during Mao's 100 Flowers campaign, which was to let, quote, 100 flowers blossom and 100 schools of thought contend, he spoke out against the Soviet invasion of Hungary and became a rightist in the eyes of the Chinese Communist movement. He was even accused of leading his baseball team in a capitalist direction.
So I just realized that in China, probably, I was the enemy So-called I'm enemy of the socialism, enemy of the Communist Party, enemy of the people. I don't have my future. But I said, what I did?
Harry was assigned a party cadre to monitor him while he was in school. Because his father had to take a lower wage job, the family lost most of its goods, including the piano. Even Man Hua stopped communicating with Harry. Upon graduation from college, when Harry was to receive his job assignment, he found out that the government had decided that he should be reformed through labor.
An officer come from the college, and he say, well, today we have a conference, criticize Harry Wu, communist official. He pulled out a paper. He said, okay, the Beijing College of Geology make an announcement. We will expire Wu Hongda students. So he have an order. When just finished, the classroom other door open, come in a police. And then he say, Harry, Honda, come here. He called me from the last row, come to the front row. And he pulled out a paper from the back and say, okay, I represented the People's Commission of the Beijing municipality, announced that we will take you to re-education through labor. And he laid down the paper and say, cover the upper part, and say, okay, you sign over here. I don't know, I have the, whatever, courage or brave, whatever. I said, can you remove the hand? I want to see the whole paper. He said, why? He said, why just sign it? I said, you covered up. I do not know what is the paper saying. You have to let me see it. He pulled out the paper. He said, I told you, okay? You don't want to sign it, fine. But I want to say, whatever you sign or not sign, you just go with me. But I want to warn you, maybe you sign it. Much better. Much better for your near future. It's a warning. I said, okay, let me sign. Until this moment, I do not know what is the paper.
Harry was headed off to be, quote, reformed in the Laogai. He was told it would only be a few months. After the communist takeover of China, the Chinese Communist Party instituted a policy with ideas sent from Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. In this instruction manual, Stalin provided assistance to the Chinese on how to set up camps where inmates were to be reformed through labor. Millions of those who were not in alignment with the Communist Party's ideas were sent to work, often starving. A huge percentage of them died. The products of their free labor have, however, been used for international distribution. Former inmates describe watching their human dignities disappear.
Every day was a battle in which I had to fight for my dignity and my rights as a human being. The worst incident occurred after I refused to work more than the 8-hour maximum day as mandated by Chinese law. At that time, I was beaten up by a group of inmates instructed by the police guards.
Others describe going through horrific torture sessions with techniques that included electrocution, even the use of confinement cells.
I think maybe the door is only 3 feet high. I'm moving and just don't hit my head. Entirely 3 feet high. And 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, like a coffin.
This dog hat was used as part of torture by the guards. Inmates were left with a hole to breathe and so that their screams could be heard while they were being beaten. Inmates recall having to wear clothes that were essentially rags. The horrible smell of Laogai is something that inmates were eager to wash off of them when they were released. For his first stop, Harry Wu, the young man who was once a baseball star and promising student, was sent to the Beiyuan Detention Center, a camp set up by Soviet experts, before heading to Qingho Farm. Harry had become a Laogai inmate.
I do not know about these detention centers. I've never been there. When I turned back, I saw the big iron door slowly, clong, close. That my life get into a new situation. There's no social life anymore.
The guards would proclaim,
"Harshness to those who resist reform."
Harry realized that he was going to be forced to live in horrible conditions. Items like this blanket were what Laogai prisoners used to make it through their existence in prison. Inmates were forced to sleep in one cell, often sideways.
Not free. Not like, okay, I want to sleep. No. Okay, the duty prisoners stand over there and say, okay, come here. One, lay down, head over there. He take you like right here. Okay, not like occupy. And then was like, come here, another one, come here. Side by side. And make a big blanket. Okay. No one can talk. Stop. Sleep. And 7 hour, 8:30, get up. Everybody get up. Line up. Everybody one by one. 10 people a bucket. Water. Of course, no toothbrush. Washing your face.
Under the constant surveillance of guards, Harry was to manufacture chemicals until he reformed. Political instructors would read what the state published, pacing behind inmates' backs. Every day, guards would ask,
"Who are you? What is this place? Why are you here?"
Inmates are forced to respond,
"I am a prisoner. This is the Laogai. I am here to reform through labor."
To nourish themselves, inmates were to live off very little food. They learned to hunt for snakes and frogs to boil in a thermos. After a year and a half in Laogai, Harry saw himself in the mirror. His ribs were like a washboard.
Basically, in the prison camp, the food offered by the communist government is a major measurement for the government to control the prisoner's life. 2 meals one day. Okay, every meal that big, not big enough. The black color, sergeant. Okay. And the pieces salty vegetable, what's that? So my weight right away dropped down.
Guards believed that he would become a socialist and worked into reform, likely digging his tomb, while his classmates were on the outside. In January of 1958, Mao launched a 5-year plan known as the Great Leap Forward. It was supposed to be an economic growth policy inspired by a Soviet model focusing on heavy industry. China's agricultural collectives were merged into what was called the People's Communes. Peasants were ordered to work on massive infrastructure projects. Private food production was banned. Livestock and farming supplies were brought under collective ownership. Unproven agricultural techniques were turned into policy.
Mao's so-called economic policy actually is failed. Okay. But the people was lied by the communists, talking about a kind of a dream that we will move into the communism systems. So everybody enjoyed to work hard for the communism systems, but actually leading the whole country, leading the people to a disaster.
The labor force was moved to the manufacture of steel, leading grain production to drop approximately 15% in 1959. This was followed by another 10% decline in 1960. There was no recovery in 1961. Under Mao's leadership, the Chinese government handled the problem by ordering a massive percentage of the harvest for itself and its own consumption, while Harry and his fellow inmates starved in Laogai. On top of that, the Chinese people were hit with drought in some parts of the nation and floods in other parts. It led to the Great Chinese Famine, which cost an estimated 30 million lives. At the height of the Great Famine, Laogai inmates were dying of starvation every day. Combating starvation took every ounce of a Laogai inmate's being. After months and years of slow starvation, inmates became so weak that they easily contracted basic illnesses that often turned fatal.
If someone die, the duty prisoners come in and using their own shirt, wrap it, 2 people carry and move out. And maybe a couple of hours later, some people move in. Maybe every day, 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 move out. Maybe a couple of same people move in. It's quite usual, waiting for the death. So this is my first time I learned that the people went close into the death, they yelling, nobody crying, nobody say any word, very simply come to the end because they don't have any energy. Nobody stand over there. Even I say, well, if you don't have energy, save your energy, even don't try to think about it, because thinking also using your energy. I don't know, I will die soon.
In Laogai, there was desperation for food. It was survival of the fittest. One inmate, Big Mouth Singh, once stole one of Harry's steamed buns, saying,
"Nobody here will take care of you. You have to take care of yourself."
Harry realized that Singh was teaching him how to survive by literally fighting for his life. And Harry got good at fighting. Over the years, Harry spent time in several Laogai locations and saw a lot of death. It must have seemed that taking yourself out of this world was to escape its darkness, its stench, its work, and its starvation.
I don't know would I survive. Some people commit suicide. For example, one guy, a Tsinghua University student, his professional is automobile professional. Same age with me. It's very good, okay. But once he tried hang himself up. And some people reported, I went over there, I saved him, put down, I tried to save his life again. Second time again. And the third time he hanged again. They called me to help. I said, no, stop. Let him go. Let him go. He just feels the death better than life. He was passed away.
Heading into the 1960s, Mao wanted to get rid of potential threat to his authority, especially then Vice Chairman Liu Shaoqi. Liu's flexible economic policy was making him more popular. Therefore, in the summer of 1966, Mao made the decision that his Cultural Revolution should begin. Politically fervent youth named Red Guards terrorized radio stations, newspapers, and apartment complexes. Even children were trained to praise Chairman Mao.
Cultural Revolution basically fighting between the communist leader, communist people, communist youth league, and the common people. They're very busy. The people fight against the police. And the Mao want to remove Liu Shaoqi. At the beginning, the rear guards in China, they're looking for so-called enemy. And of course, they come to the prison. So we were in the camp, suddenly the rear guards, maybe 20 of them come to the camp. And they were shocked, say, who's the enemy? We have more than 1,200 prisoners. They become a kind of minority. We become a majority. So Laogai camp at that moment, suppose, is a kind of a heaven.
People in the streets of cities such as Beijing would be labeled die-hard reactionaries. They were struck or beaten with heavy belts. Mao's wife, actress Jiang Qing, was one of the key players in the Cultural Revolution. She often involved herself in the political decision-making. Mao appointed her to the Central Cultural Revolution Committee. Under the guidance of Mao, his wife, and the Chinese communists, religious groups were persecuted. In fact, the CCP was interested in eliminating religion altogether. Faces of statues of Buddha were smashed, and Chinese Christian groups were driven underground. Mao's portraits replaced religious icons. His face was to be considered sacred. Harry had been burying his books inside a closet or other locations in Laogai. He feared the guards would find them.
The police gathering, all the prisoners line up and say, we received an order from the communist leader. Everybody have to give it up, your books, any kind of books, except Mao Zedong selection, except Mao Zedong quotation. And then say, okay, everybody, you have a key, offer. If you don't have a key, it's fine. We will break it, whatever. So when we come back, whoosh, there's a big hill, all the books. And the police lied and burned the books. And the other side, another small hill, a lot of boxes and case, it was not open because they have the key. And one of my boxes over there. And then they say, okay, everybody, if you don't want to offer your key, we will break it. I have some trustworthy colleagues. And I say, okay, I go to fight against with the duty prisoners. Let him focus on me. And you behind him, you stole the book, my case, back to my dormitory. And he did. So I back to the dormitory, open it, remove the books, put some 2 shoes in there, and send it back. But the police find out. And tomorrow have a big conference. Almost 1,000 prisoners gathering. And then tied me and put in the middle. And my box was there, and the 10th selection was there. Other prisoners, they want to show up. They are very active prisoners, very actively support Chairman Mao. Okay, they stupidly thinking maybe they will benefit from that stupid idea. Some people line up, come to beat me. And one of the guy that we have a kind of problem before, he used a big stick or shit on me. So he did kill, broken my arm right here. My arm dropped down.
Harry was seriously injured, but sent to the clinic to be healed so he could get back to work. In 1969, the Chinese government transferred Harry Wu to forced job placement. It was not supposed to be Laogai, but it was still forced labor.
The police come say, okay, Harry, you finish your sentence, move on. Move to where? After the camp, move to another camp. The police control it. They organize you, forced to labor.
Harry, however, had new freedoms. He found out about his old girlfriend, Man Hua, seen here years prior when she and Harry were together. He learned from others that she had been married and had kids, yet he never found out why she stopped communicating with him. Harry was sent to Watan coal mine in Shenxi province. One day, as was often the case, the mine caved in.
And in a coal mine, always have accident. Every month, some people injured, cut off the leg, maybe hurt or whatever, and maybe someone were killed. Because the coal mine, that's only like this wide, okay? Supported by wood, and the rock was come down, collapsing. Okay? I don't know what's going on. Okay? Suddenly come down, I was buried over there. And then the other people say, well, Harry Wu was missing. But the other people was fine. And the police will come to the coal mine. He's not going down. He not go to the accident space. He was upstairs. Okay, dig him out, dig him out. So prisoners digging out. They try to remove the rock and remove the wood, whatever. And then they find out my headlight was there. I said, okay, this Harry Wu headlight. They pulled me out. I lost my conscience.
He did, however, suffer 7 fractures to his back, leg, and shoulder. He was sent to the clinic to heal. The government wanted him back working. 1976 was a year when the earth shook in China. It was a year when a massive earthquake, registering 7.8 on the Richter scale, struck in Tangshan, killing nearly 250,000 people. It's when its premier, Zhou Enlai, died. And in September of 1976, Mao died after months of health problems. The news seemed to make life outside of Laogai's stop in China. Other parts of the world stopped too. Masses focused on the nation that he led and had largely blocked off. Harry was locked away in Laogai, and the deaths didn't really hit him. Without Mao, Harry just continued to labor away. He'd been to 12 different camps for close to 2 decades. He'd mined, built roads, cleared land, worked to plant and harvest crops. He'd been in a confinement cell and had been force-fed as punishment. He had fought to survive, often living off of food stolen from rats. And he also saw a place where he could well have ended up.
I saw the way wide area, graveyard, big, but I saw a lot of leg, head, the school of the head, whatever. Because you cannot dig too deep.
Finally, a Chinese captain, Li, told Harry that he was under orders to get some of the political prisoners back to civilian life and arrange a teaching job for him. Harry was loaded into a truck that was en route to Pingyao. At the age of 42, he was for the first time a free man. He found his family. His father was old and frail. He had been suffering as a result of a stroke. In 1980, he died. This picture shows Harry and his family mourning at the funeral. Harry would find out that his stepmother had committed suicide. He also learned that one of his brothers died after a police attack. Mao's Cultural Revolution died when he died in 1976. His old rival, Liu Shaoqi, was arrested and tortured during his movement. Yet, Liu's death was ruled as by, quote, illness. Mao's wife, Jiang Qing, or Madame Mao, was arrested after the chairman's death. While Harry was working as a teacher, an essay he had written captured the attention of university staffers all the way in California. They wanted him to come to America and lecture. Harry now had to go through the bureaucratic visa process. After years of waiting for a visa, Harry was set free by China and flying off to the United States. He was to be a visiting scholar at Cal Berkeley. For some time, while waiting for the proper funds, he would sleep in parks and take odd jobs like frying donuts to get by.
When I came to the United States in 1985, I was very, very happy. I become a free man in a free country. So I thought I'm almost 50 years old, no longer too many years in front of me. So I don't want to discuss or memory or comment about China issue. I'll be very quiet. I want to learn English. I want to set up my new life.
He didn't know what was going to haunt him.
But the 9 mil never leave me alone. They always come back to me and say, well, this is your memory. Remember. I keep quiet, probably 5 years. 1990, China had a big issue in the United States, talking about most favored nation trading status, and relate to Chinese prison camp that export products to the United States. I was shocked because in China, this is a public affairs. The prisoners are forced to labor and forced to make the products.
Wu decided to speak out in his new country.
And then I testified in the American Congress, in the House, in the Senate. I quite remember I want to testify in the Senate, the both sides. This is Republican Jesse Helms, and the other Senate from California, Democratic. And They quietly listened to my testimony. And finally they asked a question, say, how many camps in China? How many people were there? To be honest, I said, I don't know. Even today, nobody knows.
Harry's decision to speak out captured the attention of a Washington Post reporter named Dan Southerland, seen here covering the Tiananmen Square protests, who would go on to write stories about him over the years.
I suddenly started noticing this guy, Harry Wu, was giving some talks and getting some publicity. And I thought his story sounded amazing. And I just said, can it really be true, all these details? Because he'd gone through 19 years in the Gulag and basically slave labor. And here he is coming out with this story of surviving all of that. So I started asking some people whom I knew at Human Rights Watch, at AFL-CIO, the labor union group, is he for real? And they said, yes, he's for real.
Then Harry went a step farther and revisited China with a camera.
I thought about it. I cannot take a revenge just because our father, because my Communist Society mother, or talking about my younger brother. And I decide back to China. Legally, I tried to investigate it. So 1901, I back to China first time. I went to the coal mine, Wangzhong coal mine. It's number 4 Laogai detachment of Shanxi province. And I visited some of the camp.
It captured the attention of the producers of a popular news magazine in the U.S. and one of its star reporters, Ed Bradley. Bradley and CBS News produced an in-depth piece on the Laogai system. During their venture to the massive and ancient nation, they came across Chinese officials who denied this system existed.
The policy of the government says that products made through forced labor will not be exported from this country.
No.
Under no conditions.
Under no condition.
Bradley and Wu, however, dressed as American businessmen.
I told them that the one thing that bothered me was the reliability of their prison workforce.
Given that these people are what you call reformed through labor, we would call forced labor, that they are reliable. I mean, that they turn out a good quality product.
They told me there'd be no problem, that their factory had been in business for 41 years.
Even the CBS crew members who went with Bradley played along and dressed as businessmen. They were able to have more of the truth spilled out for hidden cameras.
To them, the quality is not up to standard. The prisoner will have the punishment or beating or some other things.
Did she say what I thought she said? That prisoners will be punished or beaten? She did.
Once we report to them, the quality is not up to standard. The prisoner will have the punishment or beating.
Bradley's show, 60 Minutes, was bringing in millions of viewers at the time and was one of America's top-rated shows.
60 Minutes has been big for decades. I mean, they were very big when this came out, and Ed Bradley was considered one of the great 60 Minutes, analysts and reporters. So it doesn't get much bigger than that. What I accomplished maybe was getting it into a major American newspaper on a regular basis, but 60 Minutes is kind of hard to top that.
During the segment on Laogai, Bradley had a memorable and near comical exchange with China's Vice Minister of Foreign Economics and Trade.
Perhaps you can explain to me the 1989 law book, the Law Yearbook of China, which is published by Beijing's Law Publishing House, said that in 1988 alone, the value of products for export made by forced labor increased by 21%. Now these are the figures published by your government, by government publication. It's in print. How would you respond to that?
I never know it.
You never know it. Now your position is what? You're the Vice Minister
of Milford.
Of Milford, which is in charge of export
and import.
And you don't know about it?
No, it has never happened.
That comes from a government publication.
Government publication can make mistakes.
The piece won awards and captivated millions, exactly what China did not want. And Harry was not done with his trips to China.
In 1993, I have a cooperation with Tibetan and with the Dalai Lama, and they arranged a trip for me. I will go back from Nepal, escape into China. But I was rejected because Chinese security knew about me and crossed over the border, come to Nepal to looking for me. 1994, I got a green card, got an American passport. And I right away changed my name from Harry to Peter. I got a new passport. When I applied the visa, I right away got it. So I can go back to China under American passport, Peter Wu, and legal Chinese visa, and meet the investigation. I went.
In 1994, the highly regarded British news outfit BBC also aired a series of reports on Laogai with the help of Wu.
Early morning and groups of prisoners accompanied by guards leave their barracks for another day of forced labor on one of a network of Laogai that cover the province of Xinjiang. Throughout China, some 10 million such prisoners are being put to work. These are the scenes that China does not want the outside world to see. Guards of the province's public security ministry, all 1 million of them, are paid for by the production work in the Laogai.
In fact, Harry would be seen throughout the world, including Australia.
I was tortured to death, starved to death, and only, if you become an animal, and then you can survive, because the animal don't have any human beings feeling, don't have any human beings concept, never thinking about the future, never thinking about the freedom or anything related with the humans, and then you can survive.
By the mid-1990s, U.S.-China relations were crumbling. Much of this was due to the U.S.'s strong relations with Taiwan. Harry had made the dangerous voyage back to China with his camera. These maps show his trip in 1991. This map shows his routes in all of his trips back in 1991, 1993, and 1994. It indicates that Harry included stops in places such as Wuhan, Chongqing, Hubei province, and several other locations across the vast nation. He had aired video of Laogai camps for the world to see. His book on his experience in Laogai had created a stir, and he had even used the mass media to expose the disturbing trend of organ harvesting used by the Chinese government.
I felt very happy when I got my new kidney in China. But when I thought that it might have come from executed prisoners, I felt sad.
He might just be a petty thief, but they executed him. Some of them could be innocent.
Harry also showcased the public executions often used by the government to obtain the organs and to intimidate the Chinese people as part of an idea to, quote, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Wu testified before Congress on the labor camps, and increasingly the U.S. government was taking note.
There is reasonable belief that these rubber products have been produced with gulag labor. The presumption ought to be on preventing their importation. And I think there needs to be an aggressive implementation in that policy.
It would be a cruel hoax if the Cold War was fought only about access to cheap labor and potential markets. We talked about freedom, we talk about it everywhere. If we say only accept if you're large and if you have cheap labor and a potential market, then all the rest goes by the by.
The mainstream media continued to cover the story.
Investigators showed pictures of such prisons given phony factory names to hide their violation of U.S. law. They say this chain hoist was made in such a facility for the Columbus McKinnon Company of Amherst, New York, which says it knows nothing about the alleged use of prison labor.
Wu has gathered evidence that he says proves that the Chinese factory Ladd's company deals with is, in reality, a prison.
If you cannot complete your quota, you got a trouble. They will remove your food
and torture you, put into solitary confinement to punish you.
Even though it was something that could get him into a lot of real trouble in his home, Harry fearlessly spoke out on the issue in front of an American and international audience.
Buying Laogai products directly denies people their human rights.
He was beginning to get some action where customs was coming after these importers. If they were importing this, it was against the law, and people were paying fines. And that was pretty much a result of his driving this. And you know Harry Wu, he doesn't let up, he doesn't stop. So he was on the sidelines just constantly bringing this up, and he developed some allies in Congress. He had a big ally in the AFL-CIO, and so the pressure was on, both from some Democrats and some Republicans, and he was getting results. And there was an agreement with China to prohibit this, to stop it, and so forth.
Then, as dangerous as it may have seemed, Wu thought it was time for yet another trip to China.
So when I come back on summer in 1994, I knew that probably I never can go back again. I applied another permit. I thought they were rejected. But it's very interesting, the Houston Chinese consulate approved it. Of course, my colleagues say, you should not go there. They are playing the game. But later I said, what they want? They want to arrest me? You kill me? Yes, I will go. And then the colleagues put up another issue, say, okay, they will let you go, but they will disappear you inside China, and nobody knows about it. So I find a woman that he loved to travel with me. So we went again. We submit a visa, and they find it information on a computer, and right away say, okay, wait. They take my passport and visa into the office and wait. And then the police surround the building. They don't touch me, don't let me go. And then remove me into the hotel. So I was arrested.
He became very good at getting in and out of China until they finally caught him before he could get out and arrested him and put him into captivity.
This time, the news media was set into a frenzy.
Harry Wu was such a thorn in China's side, he probably would have been picked up no matter what the state of relations. But his case is now likely to make a bad situation worse.
Harry Wu has become a symbol of how fast U.S.-Chinese relations are deteriorating. The Clinton administration is under intense congressional pressure to punish China if Wu is not freed soon.
If one country is allowed to take these kind of actions against Americans traveling with an American passport with valid entry papers, no American will be safe.
Right now, U.S.-Chinese relations are in terrible shape. The latest incident, the arrest 2 weeks ago of Chinese-American human rights activist Harry Wu. In Milpitas, California today, his wife tied a yellow ribbon to the front of the city hall. While in China, the government sent a U.S. diplomat on a 2,000-mile wild goose chase to find Wu.
The People's Republic of China released its own report on Wu.
On July 8, 1995, Wu Da, an American, was arrested by China's Wuhan Public Security Department according to law on suspicion of being involved in criminal activity. In recent years, Wu Da repeatedly appeared at hearings of the U.S. Congress and vowed solemnly to recount his so-called new discovery in China.
The video showed Wu being questioned by officials. It was heavily edited.
When asked if the vendor stands and shops shown in the tape have any relations with prisons, Wu Da replied, no relations.
It could have been a lot more dangerous for him had he not been an American.
If you have a U.S. passport and you're a U.S. citizen, you've got a lot more protection than somebody who's a Chinese citizen. I mean, a Chinese citizen can simply disappear. it's much harder for them to simply make somebody disappear. So when Harry was jailed, they gave him a 15-year prison sentence, and then they expelled him. And the idea of a 15-year prison sentence is like, if you come back again, it's going to get worse for you.
While incarcerated, the American consulate gave Harry books to read. An international campaign to bring Harry home had names such as Hillary Clinton attached to it. She was preparing for a trip to Beijing to address the 4th Women's Conference. The end result of the effort was that Wu was, quote, deported to the United States. Harry was able to get out after more than 2 months. Local news outfits in California rejoiced at his return. He was welcomed home back in California and spoke about the situation.
When you lost your liberty and regained the liberty, it's a very good feeling.
Hillary Clinton would eventually speak at the Beijing event and brought up her interest in human rights.
Our goals for this conference to strengthen families and societies by empowering women to take greater control over their own destinies cannot be fully achieved unless all governments here and around the world accept their responsibility to protect and promote internationally recognized human rights.
After his release, Harry made the ultimate media appearance. He showed up on The Tonight Show.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Well, Joe, I think you make a mistake.
What's that?
Well, you're inviting a criminal to your show.
A criminal?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, 5 weeks ago, I was in the courtroom. They sentenced me 15 years.
well, it could have been Joy Buttafuoco, but we'd rather have you. And if we have to have a criminal, you're the criminal we want to have here.
Sure.
Does humor ever play a part? Do you ever say to yourself, is there anything I can laugh at or amuse myself with? Does that seem like an odd question? Do you know?
Well, sometimes you can play the chess.
You play chess?
Yeah, I play chess without the chessboard.
You play in your head?
Yeah.
Oh, man. See, I can't even play checkers in my head. I'm not...
China until today is a totalitarian regime. It's a dynasty, not a republic, not people's country.
In recent years, Harry has continued speaking out on the Laogai system in film and on television, such as this telephone interview with a French station about China's supposed reform of labor camps.
I don't think the Chinese Communist Party can close to Laogai camps because this is a suppression machine. Everybody disagree with the government, they have to go to the camp.
Or this interview with the religious broadcasting network.
There's a lot of communist leaders in the world today. Every of them, they don't like the religions at all. Mm-hmm. Okay, they don't care. It's in the country, only one party ruling the country. Italian.
He has also been touring the world, visiting places such as Italy or Norway, and speaking out against Laogai.
When you get into the camp, that means you're walking in the tunnel. There's entirely no lights. Okay, but as a human beings, sometimes they can stupidly thinking about there's something in front of me. Today, all the people right here, you have the lights in front of you. You're thinking about tomorrow you were married to a man. You are thinking about tomorrow you will have a son. You are thinking about maybe tomorrow your father will recover. And maybe tomorrow you will get a promotion. Whatever, this is lights. Leading you from the beginning walk to the end. But I was sentenced to life. That's absolutely no lights. Sometime I thought about it. There's no way.
But when he came out of the tunnel, he would gain the support of many, the endorsement of world leaders, and the endorsement of celebrity activists.
I met Harry, I think about 2, 3, lose track of time, 5 years ago maybe, was the first time. And I saw him on, it was one of the talk shows, I think it was on CBS, that was documenting you're going back to prison. I was so incredibly moved, I sat there dumbfounded watching on television. The courage of this man. I sat there with tears streaming down my eyes that there was a man who could suffer like that and turn that suffering into action for his own brothers and sisters.
His Laogai Research Foundation, which was founded in 1992, has raised awareness of the Laogai camps that are active today, though the name of the Laogai system is no longer officially used by the Chinese government.
I want to set up Laogai Research Foundation. I want to find out how many camps, how many people, what is torture, what is behavior, how these people die. For example, why they arrest me, how they arrest me, and how they put me in the camp 19 years.
Wu's efforts won him honorary degrees from different universities such as St. Louis University, which gave him an honorary degree of humanities, as well as American University of Paris, which gave him an honorary doctoral degree. In 2003, an important dictionary publishing company took note and added the word Laogai to its dictionary. The word is now synonymous with Holocaust or Gulag. Then it was time for Harry to take on a new challenge.
But in 2007, we got a compensation from Yahoo. It was big money. Then I say, well, I want to set up a museum. I have too many photos, too many evidence, too many facts, and too many Chinese classified documents.
Harry wanted to further educate visitors on what they might not know.
There is a lack of knowledge about Chinese history. They may be surprised by some of the human rights violations and not be fully aware of the censorship, because the average tourist will go to China and come back and tell you, wow, it's very colorful and, you know, people are talking about stuff. The problem is, where do they talk? They might say something to you and wouldn't dare say it publicly.
Harry also had to realize that there's a lot that most may already know about China.
No, people know the Chinese economy is growing rapidly, and they know that in some respects it's the largest economy in the world now, not per capita. And I think a lot of Americans feel they've lost jobs to China. And to the extent that he could show that some factories which were importing goods that they probably should have produced themselves, but they were importing these cheap goods, he could demonstrate that this is a way in which jobs are lost in this country. So I think that definitely has reached people. If you go anywhere in this country, they know about that.
So, in 2008, Harry set up Laogai Museum to show the horrors of the system to those who visit.
I want to show the document from 1950, 1960, 1970 until 2000. This is a Chinese classified document, according to the policy, according to their documents, they put the people in the camps. Include cannibalism, include starvation, include religious freedom, include birth control, include execution, everything. So we want to set up a museum.
Early on, one of the museum's numerous visitors included someone who would know a great deal about Chinese government persecution.
Dalai Lama came to our museum. I'm very grateful that he came here to look at our museum. And Laogai is not only set up in China, but also in Tibet.
Today, years later, his museum hosts many, including students who learn about the once closed-off nation of China. Attendees also learned about the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, where a still unknown amount of civilians were publicly executed for gathering in Beijing's main square and speaking out against the government. Laogai Museum hosted an exhibit in June of 2014 to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the attacks.
Tiananmen is a huge taboo, not mentioned anywhere, almost entirely erased from the history books in China, to the point where some Chinese young people I've met have no idea what happened at Tiananmen when there was a massacre in the spring of 1989. I know what happened because I was a reporter there, but I have to have conversations with them where I convince them, no, this was not an American plot, to overthrow the Chinese government, orchestrated by a small number of Chinese students. There was a huge number of people behind that movement.
Laogai Museum showcases the stories of those who have been through the Laogai system. One example would be prominent Uyghur leader Rebiya Kadeer.
I was arrested on August 11, 1999. I was on my way to meet members of the U.S. Congress. That was the reason for my arrest. They charged me with stealing state secrets.
Other Laogai exhibits cover the issue of abortion, something China has millions of. The museum also covers what's known as China's Great Firewall, or its internet censorship policy. Visitors also find out how a popular singer, Bjork, who has performed at Tibetan freedom concerts, got herself in trouble with the Chinese government and perhaps destroyed the likelihood of rock concerts continuing in China for generations by yelling out for the freedom of the so-called autonomous region of Tibet. She was performing in Shanghai.
Tibet, Tibet. Tibet, Tibet. Tibet, Tibet. Raise your flag. Raise your flag. Raise your flag. Raise your flag. Raise your
Bjork would likely have been in real trouble if she was not from Iceland.
I mean, just any kind of mention of Tibet gets very dangerous for anybody visiting there. If she was a Chinese singer, I would say very bad things could happen. They have their ways of intimidating people, I would say. And artists and singers are particularly vulnerable if they speak out on these taboo subjects like Taiwan or Tibet.
These stories might make one wonder if China will continue its ways. A longtime supporter of Harry's, Virginia Congressman Frank Wolf, took time in his final months before retirement to note that, believe it or not, things can change in China.
In 1983, the CIA told President Reagan that the Soviet Union was so strong we could not defeat them. We were going to be able to contain them, but we couldn't defeat them. 1989, my daughter was in Berlin where the wall collapsed. You saw, I have a piece of the broken wall. So Reagan proved the CIA wrong. China is almost reaching a point that it may crumble from within. There's tremendous economic prosperity, but political freedom. Many of the Chinese, wealthy Chinese, are buying houses in the United States, in England. I don't know if they're buying them in Germany, but all over. They're beginning to hedge their bets. And I think there's a growing interest in faith. And the Catholic Church is growing tremendously. The Protestant Church is growing. They're afraid of the falling gong. You're seeing what they're doing in Tibet. They're cracking down on Tibet, where you now have 116, maybe 118 Buddhist monks that poured kerosene on the body and set themselves on fire. So I think you're seeing the Chinese government crack down because of fear.
Laogai Museum showcases Harry's publications, including a book that once captivated Dan Southerland.
In his autobiography, which is titled Troublemaker, at one point, and when I reviewed that, I said, he's China's #1 troublemaker. That was my term for him.
Most importantly, the museum shows everyone how large of an issue the Laogai really is.
Because the Holocaust Museum, they estimate probably 12 million Jewish. And Soviet Gulag estimate 25 million. But I say maybe China is 40 to 50 million. It's huge. Two classes, landlord class and bourgeois class.
Harry still lives with distinct memories of the Laogai.
I was cautioned by Captain Young. You will go to the hell sooner or later. But 12 years later, I was in United States. I said, why in this country and in that country, the government treated so differently? I do not know.
And remember that accident where Harry was believed to have died in the mine? It appears he was really just digging a tunnel.
1991, when I was in America, I went back to China. I visited the Wanzhong coal mine. I met the Captain Lee again.
I said, do you remember me? He said, of course I remember you. You are the only one did not use the coffin. Because everybody come out, put in the coffin, kneel it, that's it. And you didn't use the coffin. Of course I remember you.